This video involves creating revolved parts for the caster assembly that's part of the SolidWorks parametric modeling class. I'm going to start with a nice simple one, the axle. Let me magnify that. Axle is a solid part. It's a revolved feature, and it's clearly symmetrical, both around the axis and end to end. So we have two kinds of symmetry here, and that's important. We're going to use two center lines in this case, one that represents the axis of the cylinder itself, and the other that's 90 degrees to it and goes right down through the middle. One quick thing to point out, this 2, because there's a space after it before the X, does not mean two places. It means 2 millimeters, space, by, space, 45 degree. That's the actual size of the chamfer. It goes back 2 millimeters and then goes down 2 millimeters. There are two of them, and if you wanted to indicate that with a dimension, you'd have to precede that with a 2x with no space, then another space, and then continue. So the overall diameter is 22. The overall diameter of the part that goes into the wheel, or the bushing, is 16. The length is 80, and then we have a little indent of about 20. So we're going to go in, we're going to draw just 1/4 of this part. And what we're really drawing, when we're done, what we want to do is draw that shape right there. So that's the shape we're after because we're going to revolve it right around that center line. I'm going to just delete that sketch so we can start it again. I picked edit instead of delete, so I went offline and deleted it. Okay, we're going to start a sketch. So you go to the sketch command, and the first thing to put here is a center line. When you have this kind of symmetry, that makes a lot of sense, is to start with a center line. You can either sketch this in the front plane or the top plane. I'll pick the front plane, and because I like to sketch while I'm looking right at something, I'll take and change the view. Now, I'm going to line up my center line with the origin. I'm not going to start on the origin because I don't want the end of the center line stopping there. I'm just going to drag that over through the origin so it's black. I'm going to draw one other center line, and this time I'm going to do the same thing on the origin, but 90 degrees to the one I just drew. Now I have two black center lines, and I'm going to draw 1/4 of the profile of that axle in this quadrant, and then mirror it, and then revolve it. Come over here to the line command. I'm going to start here, approximately 40 millimeters over from the origin. Go up about 8 millimeters. Go over about 20 millimeters. Go up a couple more, come back here, and I'm just going to stop right at that center line. Rather than drag it all the way through and try to draw the whole thing, I'm drawing this 1/4 because if I mirror these entities, now anything I do for dimensioning on one end is going to affect the other. So I've selected those 4 lines. They get listed right here. I get out of the mirror about box or window. Pick that center line, automatically throws those objects over there. All these relations are added automatically, including the symmetry relation, which is what that is right there. It's symmetrical. Now I can go up and do my smart dimensioning. I can say what the overall length is by doing this, and it's just going to center that length on that center line. I can then indicate that the length from here to here is 20. And you'll notice when I change this, it's going to change it on both ends at the same time. Now that takes care of that. Do not go back in and try to add this dimension in there because it would be over-dimensioned. And the reason it's over-dimensioned is because I've already told it it's symmetrical. So that dimension has to be over here, so the dimension that's been left out is this one. If you don't want the part to be symmetrical, by the way, you wouldn't have started it this way. You would have sketched it out and then put the dimensions that you wanted in there. Now I'm going to put another dimension indicating the diameter, and because I've left that center line free to select, I can pick it, because if I pick a center line and go below it, I actually can put a diameter in as opposed to what would end up being a radius. So I'm going to bring this down here, type in the 16, that gives me that diameter. Do the same thing overall, pick the center line, drop below it, type in the 22, it gives me that. Is that the right dimension? Yes, it is the right dimension. That gives me the dimension overall, and you notice now this is fully defined. It is, however, not closed. In order to revolve this and get a solid instead of a thin revolve, I need to have a line that goes across here, but SolidWorks will recognize when I go to do that, revolve, that I've got an open sketch, and it'll warn me. It'll say, it's currently open. If you want a non-thin revolution, in other words, if I want that to be solid, that requires a closed sketch. So I'd like to close it automatically, I'm going to say yes. It flips around like so. I pick the axis of rotation window, and the reason it's asking is because there's two center lines and it's ambiguous which I want to use. I pick this, it gives me the axle, it looks like so. But if I go back right now and I edit that sketch, you'll notice that even though I didn't close that sketch myself, a line was added so that it is a closed sketch, so that it is something that's going to create a solid object. Now I'm going to add the chamfer by going to the fillet command up here. Go down and pick chamfer. I'm going to select that edge and this edge. Now that automatically put in a 2mm diameter chamfer because I had changed it already. If it was by default, it would be a 10mm diameter, and that 10mm is being possible on this because it would just come to a point, and as a result it doesn't show you what it would look like. So you have to go back and change it. Do that. Now you have your chamfer, and I prefer and recommend that you put chamfers and fillets into the model, not into the sketch, because I could have actually just drawn that in with a little edge over here, drawn a 2mm chamfer and then revolved it, and it would have all revolved at the same time. But I want that chamfer to be a separate object, a separate feature.